This is Make Something Cool. I'm Alex Sugg. Today, I am super stoked to be sitting down with Jeremy Cohen. Jeremy is one of my favorite photographers and content creators, also living out here in New York. And yeah, I'm super excited to talk. Jeremy, thanks so much for being on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think a cool place to start is maybe where I discovered you, and I imagine a lot of people discovered you, was quarantine back last year. You were a very, in my opinion, and I want to get into this more later, but you were like a very bright spot in a very dark time as like a fellow New Yorker, because it was tough being here last year around April, May. But you made some different moves that kind of brought some light on maybe a little bit of a darker season. Would you maybe just dive in to like what you were working on, what you did, things like that, just to give some context?
Yeah, so at that time when things were tough, New York City, where we both live, was considered the epicenter of the whole virus. Like it was bad in New York. We were told not to leave our apartments really. Like even to get groceries, it was kind of blurred lines what we were supposed to do. So I was stuck in my apartment all alone. And that's when I noticed that people started to go to their roofs. So, yeah, this was also while New York just had a very long and cold and brutal winter, classic New
Mm-hmm.
York winter. It's just miserable for a while. And then all of a sudden spring hits, it gets really nice. And this is all while we were told to stay inside.
Right.
So, and everything else going on in the world, which was crazy. So, but in my neighborhood in Bushwick, a lot of us have rooftop access. So this was the one place that everyone can go where you could still do the things you love to do, even though you couldn't go to the music studio, you could still play guitar on the roof, or even though you couldn't go to the gym, you could work out on the roof or do whatever activity you wanted to do, really. You could just go up to your roof and do it there and get some fresh air.
Mm.
And that's when I started my photo series where I documented rooftop culture specifically during this time. And to me, the photos are just showing New Yorkers' resiliency. Like, New Yorkers are some of the toughest people. So, um, and no matter what happens, they could still make the best of it. So this was me kind of shining light on that.
For sure.
And that's yeah, that's one of the series that I was doing over quarantine.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I felt like unless you live here, and I don't want to be too inside baseball for people listening who aren't in New York, but like I don't, it's crazy how important rooftop and outdoor access was at that time, just purely for like our mental state, because our apartments are already tiny. We're in these little boxes all day anyway.
Yep.
So to have any sort of outdoor, we were fortunate in that we have a dog, so we're able to like go out and walk him. But otherwise, yeah, you're just cooped up. And so, but what was so cool was, you're right, it's like around you, and I don't know, your building seems like perfect for this too, because it's like super high. So you're able to capture all this stuff going on around you. So like, what were some of the things you saw? I know like you had mentioned like guitar playing, but there was some other crazy stuff that you caught too.
Yeah, so there were, and that's a good point, by the way. Like New York apartments are notoriously very small and some without like window light. Like a
Mm,
lot of people's bedrooms that I know of, like they just don't have windows. It's like not, you get windows in the living room for sure, but there's a lot of like makeshift bedrooms so more people can fit into apartments because rent is so expensive.
right.
So that, while being also told not to go outside at all, it was brutal. But yeah, luckily, going to your rooftop is like a safe place where you can still go outside and still get that vitamin D.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, man.
So other people, yeah, activities on the roof. Let's see. Like one of my favorite photos I took from the series is a guy playing tennis, like practicing his serve just with himself. I saw him throw up the ball and practice his form to serve it like 100 times, and then see just a bunch of people exercising, whether it's yoga or just doing calisthenics on the roof, like
Yeah.
using whatever on the roof. Like this one guy, like there's a little like indent, so the guy used it to do what's it called? Just like push-ups with different
Oh, uh-huh. Yeah,
on
yeah.
different levels. Just like I saw people being creative to work out in different ways. I saw people jump roping. Let's see, so many different activities, honestly. Hula hooping, flying kites,
Right.
uh, meditating.
Yeah, that's cool. I
Yeah.
You had one that ended up on the cover of New York Mag. which is like a huge deal. And that was
Yeah,
the playing it. What was it? Stand up bass, right?
yeah. I keep forgetting if it's stand-up bass or if it's cello. Those
One or the
those
other.
two instruments are like very similar. And I remember when I first posted it, people in the comments were saying like it was two different things.
Oh,
So
okay.
I got to double check which one it is. I believe you're right.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been so long I kind of forget
Yeah, man. I
which
mean, that was
instrument it was.
crazy though, because I felt like, I don't know, it was just a cool moment to just see that and to be like, wow, this is kind of, I don't know. And again, being here, it really was like a survival mechanism for all of us, like people who are fortunate enough to have that. A lot of people didn't even have rooftop access and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but all that to be said, it was a really cool moment. You also built some relationships through this too. Like I know you made friends with some of these people. I think you got a girlfriend out of it. That was a big series from this. I mean, maybe tell that
Yeah.
story too. I know people will like that, and then we'll jump into more like the creative
Yeah.
stuff. But
I mean, so that was the other thing that went viral was when I was looking out my window all the time because I was photographing this series. I'm a photographer
yeah,
traditionally. So I was looking out my window and, looking at these people, and then there was this one person that was right across the street from me. Because from where I'm at, I could see like a lot of different roofs, and I have a very long lens, so I was like looking all different roofs. But like it wasn't often like right across the street from me there was someone.
mm,
So I noticed this girl dancing across the street, and I was just attracted to this energy, especially during this time where there wasn't a lot of positivity. I just saw someone dancing across the street. She had long, dark, curly hair. It's like, who is this?
mm,
And at that time, I was probably alone for like a week straight, or a little bit over. And I'm a very outgoing guy. And
mm-hmm.
this was like new. I'm very talkative and social. Uh, so this was, I think I was craving some sort of social interaction because I was just in my zone shooting this photo series. So that's when I decided to shoot my shot and just put my number on my drone and just fly it across the street. And this was also at a time when my New Year's resolution for 2020 was to get into TikTok because TikTok
mm,
started to become a thing. Even I'm a photographer, but I like to creating in general. So
yeah,
um, I saw that TikTok was becoming a thing and I wanted to give it a shot, even though it just felt like the same as Instagram. I was like, you know what, let me give this a shot. So I got on TikTok January and started posting a couple things. And so I started getting down with this TikTok format I was doing of telling stories through video. And when I asked her out, I just like recorded it just in case I wanted to make like a TikTok out of it.
mm,
And and then yeah, I sent her my number. She eventually texted me back. I had some footage of like me flying my drone over the street, and I asked. I had some. I thought it could be an interesting TikTok.
yeah,
So I now that I had her number, I texted her. I was like, "Hey, is it cool by the way if I post this as a TikTok?" She's like, "Yeah."
uh-huh.
And little did I know that video got like 32 million, 36 million views, something
Yeah,
like that. 30 on TikTok, and then once I posted it on TikTok, and all of a sudden it started to really resonate with people. Um, I was like, you know what? Like this isn't something I would normally post on my Instagram because I use my Instagram as like my photography portfolio.
mm,
I like to post just like my best work on there, and like posting like this TikTok video love story. It's not like I don't know if I'd do that, but once it went pretty viral on TikTok, I was like, you know what? I'm not really shooting right now, anyways. Besides this rooftop series, but like it's kind of it relates to this rooftop series, so I'm gonna post it, and I did, and then on Instagram it blew up, and then I was like, okay, well maybe I'll also post it on Twitter, and so it 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 did well on all those different platforms with all different audiences. So on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, my following started to go up, and people started to ask for more. So then I made a part two, and then I made a part three, and it became this whole thing. So I kept getting inspired to like come up with the new video, like a more creative date for Tori, who was the girl. And yeah, so we ended up doing six parts, and it was a crazy time.
yeah, man, it's so
And
cool.
yeah,
I loved my favorite one. It may have been part. I watched these last night because I was recapping, but I was following closely last year. I think it was part three when you were in the bubble. You actually got an inflatable bubble that you walked across the street in and all this crazy stuff because you couldn't actually interact because
Yeah.
the COVID stuff. But yeah,
Yep.
it was so fun to watch. And yeah, it was funny. I felt like, at the time I was working at a news organization, and even like within, it was like circulating within, like, look at this crazy guy doing this,
Yeah.
like shooting his shot across the street through a drone. It just kind of went crazy back then. But yeah, it was really fun. And I felt like, yeah, again, like bringing it back to positivity. Like I think when, and I love your photography and your content in general. And I think like the real reason why is I feel like you embody like positivity, and I think that is why your work kind of cuts through so much, because the world is kind of a bummer a lot of the time, and I think like that optimistic point of view is really, really cool and really refreshing. I mean, maybe to start, where does that come from? Like, are you just a naturally very optimistic guy? You always kind of saying the glass half full? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of it comes from my mom, I'd say.
Mm,
My mom is a stage 4 cancer survivor, and she was very close to not surviving at one point,
mm,
and she survived, and ever since then she really does live life to the fullest, like, and just, growing up with her, she just like I just saw how she lived life and how she really made the best of everything, and that kind of rubbed off on me.
yeah,
And it just like, yeah, I just really look at, I don't know. There's just like I'm just an optimist. I would consider myself. I just really enjoy life. I love what I do. I love my friends. I love talking to people. I just find so many things interesting. Obviously the world's not a perfect place, and there's bad times for
mm,
sure. A lot of bad news out there, but like I'm pretty good at like not stressing about things that I can't control. So yeah, I don't know if
yeah.
that's a good explanation for it, or
No,
if
that
it's just
is.
like something that I was born with. But yeah,
Yeah. We don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but I mean with your mom, did that happen earlier in your life, or were you younger?
yeah. So it's funny we're talking about this now because I so for my podcast, which you're familiar with too, I
Mm.
just recorded my first episode and it's with her,
Oh,
and
cool.
we talked a bunch about that. So you should check that out if you get a chance sometime. But yeah. So this happened. She got diagnosed when I was 7 years old, or 6 years old, 6 or 7 years old. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Okay.
it was at an age where I knew it was going on, but I was also a little confused,
Sure.
and yeah,
So then
like
like
it was intense.
yeah.
Like my mom wrote her final note and everything, like
Mm.
pretty much saying goodbye, and her doctor gave her like a 15% chance of surviving. Um, but yeah, I don't know what it was actually like to go through this, but
Mm.
yeah, according to my mom and all other people that have been through difficult stages of cancer, like, yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah,
But
for
yeah, I'm
sure.
super proud of her for fighting through it, for multiple reasons. Like, of course, for her, but also like I would be a totally different person right now for a fact if like she didn't fight through and if she didn't make it.
For
So
sure. Yeah. I mean, those are like I mean, you said you don't know what it's like to go through it, but you had your experience going through it, and that's like through your adolescent years of like starting to really understand the world. And I think like that's so cool that her positivity, even through like something unthinkable, that most people
yeah,
can never go through. That's so cool. That's what you got from it. Um, but yeah,
totally. And like since then, her license plate on her car says "To Life," like "Cheers to Life." It just says "To Life."
oh, I love that. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd love to hear the interview with you and her, because I see you post sometimes, and it's like it always feels like it's a party when like you're hanging out and stuff. I'm like, that seems just so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's great. I mean, it really shines through in your work too, though. Like, I'm wondering when it comes to like photography. I think that's mostly maybe you're known for your content creation and like the stories and stuff, but I think professionally most of like your income and stuff comes from taking photography. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like your photos are amazing, and you've shot the president, you've shot a lot of like really high level people, but you
Yeah.
also
I like to say I photographed the president, not to be confused. I didn't shoot the president.
Oh, good point. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I'm
obviously,
sure
like but like when I say I usually say shot too, but when it's with someone like the president, I try to say photograph.
that's a really good point. Really good point. Thanks for
Yeah,
catching me on
just
that.
so everyone's clear, I'm not like Harvey Oswald or whatever got
Yeah,
going
yeah,
on.
for sure. You don't want someone to clip that for sure. No,
Yeah,
that's a good point. But yeah, you shot or you photographed President you photographed
yeah,
President Biden, and lots of other like Post Malone and like all these big artists and stuff. How do you approach? Well, I guess I'll frame it a little bit better. What I feel like in your photos is you're really good at telling even a story in a single photo. And I guess like how do you approach your photography? Like when you go in to take a, because that's a big deal. You're taking a photograph of the president or some big artist. How do you approach those moments? Like I'm really curious.
yeah. I mean, I guess it's different in different situations, but if it's someone like a celebrity, not or no, anyone whose story I'm trying to tell, I need to know them first or get to know them. So whether, like for example, if it's like Post Malone, like for you, if you're interviewing me, you do some research on me before you
Mm,
interview me because you want to ask. It's like similar with photography. I need to know about them and know how I'm going to go about photographing them.
yeah.
Uh, and I don't know if you're familiar with my personal project today I photographed.
Yeah, I
Um,
saw it on your site.
but that's my personal project. It's my baby. It's been what I've been working on since 2016. I think it's going to be an ongoing series forever. At
Okay.
first, it was like at first for the first 300 or sorry 613 days, I believe. My goal was to go up and meet a stranger and photograph them every single day, once a day.
Okay. Cool.
So even with that, for example, like if I just went up to them and say, "Hey, can I take your photo?" photograph them, and then just left, it's not going to be as good of a photo as if compared to what I did, which is I went up to them and I would ask to take their photo, but then I would talk to them a little bit and get to know them a little bit. Sometimes it would be a quick 1 minute conversation, but sometimes it would be a longer conversation. And then once we were comfortable with each other and I knew just some basic things about them,
Mm.
I could photograph them better.
Yeah, for sure. So that's a big part of it is that personal touch. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I think
for
that
sure.
that adds a lot too, and it makes I don't know. I feel like with dealing when you're trying to tell somebody's story, just that personal connection matters a lot. And you said you're a people person anyway, so it's probably fun for
Yeah,
you to be like, "Hey, let's talk," because it's
yeah,
not just celebrities you photograph; it's everyone across the board, and it's really cool. But I love see you basically enter every moment the same. You're just like, I want to get to know this person a little bit better.
yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
absolutely.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I guess what got you into photography as a
Uh,
storytelling medium?
yeah, so I think a couple things got me into photography. I had a couple different stages before I really, really got hooked. But at first, it was a family vacation to Yellowstone National Park, actually, when
Mm,
I was about 15, I believe. And my dad, who was always into gadgets, he brought along this like little digital point and shoot camera that he got from some electronic convention he went to or
mm,
something like that. It was like a Japanese camera that like I have no idea what the brand was, but he brought it on this vacation and my younger sister took it from him and took some photos on it.
yeah,
And I looked at behind her camera and the photos looked really cool and I got a little jealous because we were naturally competitive being so close in age.
yeah,
So I borrowed the camera a little bit, took some photos, and it made the vacation that much better. Because at the time, it's so silly. Like I just couldn't. I was not like that excited to go on this vacation because like I was a stubborn brat
yeah,
that
yeah.
like oh, hiking for a week, that's like not fun. I want to play video games or whatever.
Sure.
But once I got that camera and started taking well, once I borrowed that camera, started taking photos, it made the trip that much better. It made me experience nature in a whole different way and
Mm,
appreciate its beauty. And I really liked taking the photos. It was like fun for me, and I wasn't familiar with that feeling too much, something new like that.
yeah.
Like a hobby. Like for me, I mean, it was like I love sports, and that was sports and video games. That was about it. But like
Mm,
at that time, I don't know. I was like a basic 15-year-old.
yeah.
And I got back from that trip, and I was still thinking about photography, and I was like excited to look over the photos of my dad's computer. And then for my 16th birthday, I asked for a camera.
Mm,
And but to get that gift, because it was, it was a pretty big ask because cameras are expensive. So I made a promise to my parents that I was going to use it if they got it for me. Like it was going to become a thing. So I didn't want to let them down, and I started shooting all the time on it, and I got more and more into it. And then I took a film photography class at my high school with a teacher named Mr. King, and I credit him a lot for really pushing me even further because I didn't really have any friends or community at all at the time that did
Mm.
photography. Like all my friends were into sports pretty much.
Yeah.
Um, and no one, yeah, just kids in my photography class were just, a lot of people took that class because it was just an elective to take
Hmm.
and it wasn't that difficult.
For
But like
sure.
for me, like I really liked it.
Right.
And I still like didn't consider it an actual, I never really considered it an option for like a career or anything until like it came time to like applying for colleges, and I just like a lot of kids had no idea what I was going to do. And I think I applied to 9 schools, and then one or two of them were art schools because I just like considered the option of going to art school.
Mm.
Even though I hadn't really like flexed my creative muscles at that point too much, like it was just with photography really. But I didn't, I shot here and there, but I just like didn't think I could go to college for it for a second.
Mm.
And then SVA, which was the art school this is the first school I visited, and it's in Manhattan. And I grew up in Pennsylvania. I went over to Manhattan to visit the college with my parents, and I just went there, and it felt really good. It felt like I could belong here. So
Yeah.
I ultimately decided to go to SVA, and it was a really good decision.
For sure.
One, to go to that school, but two, that I was in New York was very important to where I'm at now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like I went to, so in my high school, it was like photography, ceramics, and like art all kind of in the same corner. And you could basically count on that corner of the school being where you would take electives not to do work.
Right, exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
But there were always, I remember, I'm forgetting his name, but he was just this incredible ceramicist. Like he was so gifted at ceramics, while all of us were like not paying attention or whatever and just goofing off. He was like so talented. And I remember that too for photography. Some people just took it really serious and it just really clicks. And that's such a cool opportunity. So shout out to, you said Mr. King?
Mr. King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. But yeah, I guess coming to New York too, I mean, that's a big stop as a young person, but I bet even then it probably felt pretty far off that this could become a career. Like, I'm curious, like, what was that first paid gig, or what was that first moment that like really clicked for you where you're like, oh, this can actually be real. Like, I don't have to,
Yeah.
like, what was that?
Yeah, I like just didn't take, my future too seriously up until like my junior year of college, I feel like, because I don't know, I was like nervous about if I was going to be able to like survive as an artist because
Mm.
like, all my friends were going to like more, schools and getting these degrees that I just knew I don't think I would ever be capable of doing. And yeah, so what was the first job? So I had a couple of my first jobs like did not go well,
How so?
but like I think my first ever paid job that was like for a client and not like for a family friend type of thing. I was shooting for this magazine, and I was so nervous. The shoot itself, it was like, it was like just a laughable amount of money for like
Mm.
this shoot. But at the time I was like so excited about
For
it,
sure.
and um, I had to, it was the type of thing like renting the gear and taking an Uber to get to the shoot, like those two costs
That was
like
like the
cost
whole
more than
cost.
well, no, it was more than what I was getting paid for the actual shoot
Yeah.
itself.
Golly.
So,
Okay.
so I didn't realize that until after. But anyways, I get to the shoot and I'm just photographing this artist for this magazine,
Mm.
and I show up with my lighting gear and my camera and my friend who is my assistant, and we shoot it really quick. I get home and we shoot it for like an hour. I wasn't, I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was really nervous. So, but I got some like okay photos. They're not
Mm.
great. by any means, but they were okay.
Yeah.
And I edited them and everything, and then sent them to the client. And I don't know, I didn't really get any feedback, but they ran them in the magazine. But when they ran them in the magazine, I remember just being really upset because they cropped them totally differently, and they edited it themselves.
Mm.
And I'm pretty sure to this day I still haven't gotten paid for that shoot, which is crazy.
Yeah,
But
that's so shitty. Yeah.
yeah,
But I mean, I feel like that's kind
um,
of a lot of the stories of starting out, of just like,
yeah. So
yeah.
it was a learning experience, and that's what I got from it. I I got to get those nerves out and like be able to get my first shoot under my belt.
Mm.
And yeah, I think the first shoot that to answer your question though, the first shoot that I really started to take this seriously. Ooh, excuse me. The first shoot that I really started to take this seriously was when I got hired to shoot this 15-second video. Actually, it wasn't even
Mm.
photography, but it was a video that I shot on a GoPro for Beats by Dre
Cool.
for this like campaign that doesn't sound as cool as I might be making it sound, but they hired a bunch of different creators
Mm.
to shoot their campaign for them, which was the what was it called? The I forget what it was even called, but it was for their new headphones, over ear headphones. And what
Hmm.
you're supposed to do is you take your camera and you go from ear to ear in like a 180 gyrating motion.
Oh,
So
cool.
like you bring out the camera and you extend your arm fully and swing it in front of your face, and it shows like your face is in the center of the frame the whole time, and it shows your background of where you are, and then it goes into the other ear, and then transitions out the other ear again, and you're in another setting.
That's cool. Okay.
So I made this video like while I was on a snowboarding trip actually with my friends.
Mm.
When I first got offered it, I was like, damn, I can't do this. I'll be on a trip. But then I realized, wait, I could just like I don't have to be in New York to make this. I could just make this while I'm on
Right.
this trip. So I made it, while I was snowboarding. So one scene was like while I was on a chairlift maybe, and then another scene was while I was actually snowboarding, and then another scene was while I was in like the hot tub after the day of snowboarding. That's
Mm.
which is one of my favorite things to do, by the way, like a hot tub in
Hmm.
the winter
Yeah.
after snowboarding. Like it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
It's got to be top 10.
For sure.
And then I think the last one was like I just to switch it up a little bit, I did it with like a snowman's face instead of my face.
Oh, that's cool.
So I don't know. It just showed that it was a very also like not it money wise it like was paid like nothing, even though it was for like Beats by Dre. But I made this video for that this agency hired me for and hired a bunch of other creators for, and I think it just showed like my creativity, and this agency was really interested to work with me again because of that.
Mm.
And so they hired me for another thing, and then they hired me for another thing, and then it was just the snowball effect.
For sure.
I kept wanting to make the next video or photo project better and better, and yeah, that's how it started. And I think projects got bigger, and I started to get more clients, and yeah,
That's
so
cool.
that's pretty much what happened. And that was right after I graduated college. It was when I was 23, I
Okay.
believe.
So have you been doing full-time content creation since then? Or have you had other jobs like throughout the time?
So I had I forget the timing exactly, but I had a pivotal moment, I think, where I had a job right after college.
Hmm.
I was applying because while I was in college to make money, I was working as a photo assistant for a lot of different photographers. So I'd
Hmm.
assist on shoots, and that's also how I learned a lot about photography by
Hmm.
just like hands-on experience, being working next to photographers, seeing what they were doing. So then I graduated college, and I was still assisting, but I was scared I wasn't gonna like make enough money.
Mm.
Um, so I wanted to get like a part-time gig because I didn't want a full-time thing because I still wanted to assist. I wanted to work on my own projects, which was very important to me.
Mm.
And then I just thought I would feel better if I had like a part-time steady thing that was photography related.
Yeah.
So at this one studio, they were hiring like part-time studio hand assistants, like, and I applied for it and I got the job. And it was like this new studio that is a huge studio now in New York. It's like a lot of things happen there. It's a cool studio. Um, and my first day there, I got on the job, and within the first 30 minutes of the job, I quit. And this isn't my style really. I don't really quit, but I quit. I was doing the job, and after 30 minutes, I literally just walked out and ghosted them, which
Wow.
isn't my style at all,
Yeah.
but I was pretty upset because I we had this whole interview process and everything, and from my understanding, I was an assistant. I was going to be on set assisting photographers. There were shoots happening there every day. You know, I would be on set. I thought I was going to be learning things, whatever. The first thing they made me do as soon as I got there, they put me as elevator duty. So I was literally in an elevator, just standing in there pressing a button for anyone coming in. And I was pretty upset because it's not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And but it was fuel for me. I walked out after 30 minutes. I was like, I'm not doing this. And I walked out, and it was fuel to work harder on my personal projects and do
Mm.
my own thing.
Yeah, for
So
sure. Those
yeah.
moments are huge. Those moments are huge because I'm
Yeah.
sure like you're sitting there and you're like your life is flashing before your eyes a little bit. Like, what am I doing? I need to go.
No, that
Yeah.
yeah, that's what happened. And that was the only experience in my life that I've ghosted people. Even in dating, I do not ghost. Like I'm a firm believer that it's very messed up, but in
Mhm.
this situation I give myself the exception because yeah, I don't think they even cared. I think that one of the guys reached out. He's like, "Hey, like, did you?" And then I had a friend working there, and I just like told them that I told my friend to tell them that I quit.
Yeah. Nice.
I didn't want to give them the time of day.
Right, for sure. I mean, so I'm curious, and if you remember, I know it's been a while since then, but what? How did your mindset change that day? Like, did you all of a sudden did you shift to I don't need another job and I just need to bet on myself? Like, was that a real turning point?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't say it to myself exactly like that. Like, I wasn't. I think I remember it's so long ago now. This
Mm,
was 8 years ago. I just remember walking out. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. Like, that's just a waste of my time.
mm,
I'm gonna keep assisting and make money that way. In the meantime, I am going to work on my own projects. And at that point, I was working with photographers a lot, and I was taking bits and pieces from each one and applying it to myself for my own work. And I felt totally capable of doing these shoots that all these photographers are doing really well on.
mm.
Like they're all photographing different ways and like are all very talented. But I felt like I was talented too, and I could do it.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
and a lot of that was the confidence, and I built up confidence from seeing how like before I worked assisted with photographers. I did this magazine shoot. That was right when I started assisting photographers, and yeah, I just went in, just had no idea how to handle a shoot.
Mm,
But at this point, I saw it from beginning to end,
right.
and yeah, I felt like I could do it. I just needed to get the clients, and that's when I started also working on my personal work, which is what gets you work, I think. Once you put out a personal project telling a story, showing that you're not only talented as like a photographer, like technically like taking good photo, but also stringing those images together to tell a story. That's when um, people will come to hire you.
Yeah, for sure. When did that start clicking? Like, oh, this isn't about just being technical. Like, I have to tell a story here. What does that look
Yeah,
like?
yeah. So that started at about the same time
Yeah.
because my background was learning studio lighting. Like
Hmm.
I thought in my mind I was like, okay, to be a successful photographer, I have to know how to light a photo because I wanted to be a portrait photographer. I have to know how to have a three lighting setup and do all these different lighting techniques depending on what type of portrait I want to take, this and that, have all this gear. Like that's why I showed up to that first shoot with
Mm,
all this gear. But then I realized like it's not about the gear, it's about being able to tell the story and taking good portrait. And natural light is the best form of light.
mm,
And even though it's like you're not necessarily like working as hard, or that's how I thought it, you can't take as good of a photo if you're not setting up all this equipment.
mm.
But I found if you get the right moment at the right time, it's like a lot of times you could lose it if you're setting up this equipment.
Yeah.
And so I started just like not relying on having gear,
Mm,
just me and my camera, maybe a couple other lenses, and that's how I started taking photos.
yeah. I feel like that's like a metaphor for anybody trying to make anything. Because I think it's so easy to go down like the rabbit hole of gear and like gear reviews, like which camera should I get or which microphone should I get or which whatever.
Yeah.
And really, like what you said is pretty profound, and I think it's true. And I think it happens all the time where you miss the moment because you're so caught up in like what you're using instead of like why you're doing what you're doing, or the story you're trying to tell, or the thing kind of you're trying to uncover in this moment. That's been an ongoing thing I've noticed throughout my whole life. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of obsessive about like give me the very like the bare minimum to get what I need to work to go do the thing I want to do. But I have friends, like I grew up playing music, and I would like call my friends to be like, hey, what guitar should I buy? What pedal? What amp? Because I don't want to research that. I just want it to sound
Yeah.
awesome, you know. But
Yeah. Of course.
I feel like it's so easy to get caught up in that like the gear. But what really matters and what really connects is the story. Um,
Yeah, and sometimes the story is like for certain photographers, you need that gear to tell it. Like that's how
sure.
you do it. But I found the way that I wanted to do it is it was easier for me to not have to use that stuff and not be in this controlled setting, which is easier for a lot of people and you can take
Mm,
amazing photos that way. But I value like being there in that moment and being really mobile, just like me and my camera, not having a long setup time, just like being able to just capture whatever whenever. So and especially with cameras now, it's like these camera files. There's so much information in them. It's almost like you could fake a light in post processing.
mm,
If like something's too dark in a certain spot, you could do like a spot adjustment.
yeah,
I mean, it's definitely not the real thing, but you could fix a lot of things
for sure.
in
And
post.
catch the important moments that you're not,
Yeah,
trying to fix a light or whatever. You're actually
yeah.
catching, something happening in real
And
time.
I was doing that for so long, like
Mm,
while I was in school and like right after school, it's like yeah, I would feel like I needed at least one light at all times. So
yeah, for sure.
now I'm almost all natural light. I still
Mm,
sometimes bring a light with me on shoots just in case, just like
mm,
a fill, but
yeah, that's cool.
natural light.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I mean, this is probably like closer to the last section of our conversation I want to get into, but I do find it interesting, like especially with creating and publishing content publicly. And I think you're a great example of this because you have a lot of followers and a lot of people looking at the stuff you're posting. One thing that I personally encounter, and I know a lot of people listening encounter, is insecurity around both creating content but also posting content. I'm curious, like, do you still face insecurity around posting things? Did you ever face that, or was it always just kind of like, no, I feel pretty secure in posting what I'm working on and all that stuff? Or has that been like any sort of learning around that for you as well? Like, what's that been like?
Yeah, I definitely get nervous about posting certain things. Like I think at this point, a lot of my work also, how I make money is I do influencer stuff.
Hmm.
Which I pretty much only say yes to jobs that, I'm not just saying yes to everything because there's
Hmm.
a lot of brands out there that want to work with influencers and I'm pretty selective about who I work with, but at the same time there's like a lot of cool projects that I still want to do.
Mm.
And I'm at a point where I'm like the thing that makes me most nervous is I'm doing like a decent amount of brand deals and I'm
Mm.
not having enough time for my personal work.
Mm.
So I feel like my ratio right now of posting on my Instagram, like brand deals compared to personal work, it's like a little skew, like it's a little too much brand work right now. So I am nervous about that. Like
Mm.
I get more excited about posting personal work, and I still am nervous about posting certain personal work that's like a little bit out of my wheelhouse. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, most people are like, you want as many likes as possible. It's if we say we're not, we're probably like it always feels better when we have more likes.
Mm.
But I try not to think that way, and I'm pretty good about not thinking that way. But I do feel like if I post something and it gets more likes, I'm definitely more satisfied with the thing that I put out there. You
Yeah,
know?
for sure. Was it always easy for you to like just put things out into the world? Because I do find like a lot of times the conversations I have, and again with even my own insecurities about stuff, I find that it's just that initial fear, and maybe now you've kind of crossed the mountain or whatever, so to speak, to where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, now you've kind of crossed this threshold of like influence or whatever, to where now it's like everything kind of works for the most part. I mean, comparatively speaking, versus somebody who has like 500 followers or something like that.
Right.
I mean, was there a point like when you were just starting out, like were you just kind of going for it and you didn't really feel any of those insecurities, or were you just like working past it, moving past it, just like anybody else?
No, I mean, I definitely had insecurities about putting things out, and I
Mm-hmm.
still do sometimes. Like sometimes I know I'm gonna put something out, and I know it's gonna resonate with people, and people are gonna like it. But other times it's like a little bit different, and I am nervous about posting it. I do get, and really anything that I post, I still get a little nervous about posting it because it's a lot of people are gonna see it, and yeah, it's a little scary.
Yeah.
So it's a mix of feelings. Like it feels good. I feel like if I don't post, um, people are gonna forget about me. I'm not gonna get hired for work. It's like I feel like I have this constant pressure that I have to be posting, and so it's like whenever I do post, it's like a feeling of relief, but also I'm nervous when I post.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Is that hard to
um,
balance that? Like that fear of like, if someone, you don't want to be forgotten or whatever, but I'm sure that weighs, I don't know. I imagine a lot of people are like, wow, Jeremy, he just does freelance and he works for himself and he has this really cool, fun life, which are all true, but there's probably some pressure there too. That's probably can get hard to manage.
definitely. I mean, it's a lot. Like I love what I do and I love working, but there's moments where I feel overwhelmed because
Mm-hmm.
like it's not only the photography part. It's like I don't really have anyone helping me. I mean, I hire assistants and editors sometimes, but all the emails and admin work and taxes and every like being a photographer is 10% of the photography, is what
Yeah.
they say. So, um, yeah, just like pre-production, post-production, ev everything. It takes a lot. A lot of shoots I'm like producing myself. So yeah, and now like with video editing, like that takes a lot. Wait, so what? Sorry, what was your original question?
The original question was just, it wasn't really even a question. It was more just like an assumption that at times the pressure can feel like a lot because of,
Yeah,
and especially now that you've kind of, your following has grown so much. Like, I feel like on the outside, it's like, oh, that's so cool. But I'm sure that there's also this other side of that. There's also some pressure to that too.
yeah. I mean, I'm curious if there's a such thing as a perfect job out there. I feel like with anything, like I love what I do,
Yeah.
trust me, and I wouldn't want to do something else at this moment in my life. But yeah, definitely, I feel overwhelmed and pressured often as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I don't think there's a perfect
Yeah,
job. I think
yeah,
it's cool to hear though that like, because I don't know, in the modern world, it's easy to kind of assume things, and especially
yeah.
like I have a lot of empathy and compassion for people who are more successful or more have more notoriety or things like that, because I think there are a lot of assumptions around like, oh well, because they made it or whatever, their life is a certain way. There's an assumption, but I think it's just not true. I think we're all just human beings still trying
We're
to
all
figure.
human. We
Yeah.
all feel the spectrum of emotions, no matter what. But it's skewed online because we always post the best things online. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's the highlight reel is online.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, man, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm curious, like, was there anything we didn't touch on? You want to mention? Like, what do you want to shout out for people to go check out? I know you have your podcast, your photography.
Yeah, I guess so. If anyone here is interested or involved in the NFT world, I'm gearing up to release my rooftop series as an NFT series. I'm thinking an edition of 50 photos. I have a lot of friends, photographer friends specifically, getting in the NFT space right now, and I'm really excited about it. It took me a little bit to understand after being skeptical about it, and there is still a lot of skepticism about it,
Hmm.
buying JPEGs, buying and selling JPEGs online, blah, blah, blah. But at this point, I don't want to get into it right now, but it makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm really excited about the space and the community.
Mm.
And I feel really good about releasing the series in that space. So I'm gearing up, to make the final selection of it's either going to be like 50 or 55 photos, I think, of the best rooftop series photos. And yeah, I gotta put it together and promote it a little bit, and it's going to be out within the month. I'm expecting. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited. We don't have to talk about it, but I'm excited about that space as well. I don't know if you
Yeah.
saw the Rock that got sold for 1.3 million bucks or whatever. That
Wait,
goofy
really?
cartoon Rock. My buddy Tom, who I want to have on the show soon. That was his Rock. And I
Wow.
think it's just a crazy, weird space that I'm really interested in. But I think you're gonna crush it on there. That's a really cool project that I think will really connect. So that's cool, man.
Thanks,
Cool.
man. Cool.
And then also your podcast.
And my podcast, yeah. I have a podcast myself too, which I'm just interviewing, like, some of it's photography related, but it's an interview series where I'm interviewing a variety of just interesting people
Cool.
people that I find interesting. First episode of season 2 just came out, which is my mom, as I mentioned earlier, cancer survivor. Also, just for anyone that's a fan of me on the internet, it's interesting to hear my relationship with my mom, I think, because we're just inspire each other creatively. She's an artist as well. My next episode, which I'm actually recording today, later tonight, is of this guy who is like an 8-time Jeopardy winner.
Whoa.
Austin Rogers, I believe. I haven't met him yet, so I'm pretty sure his name is Austin Rogers.
Okay.
And he not only is he a Jeopardy winner multiple times, but he's also still a bartender in New York. So I thought that was a pretty interesting story. He's still working as a bartender in Hell's Kitchen, even though he's won a lot of money with Jeopardy.
Oh, that's cool.
And he just seems like a really interesting dude. So a lot of these people that I'm interviewing, I don't really know them that much. I do a little bit of research. I'm gonna do a little bit more research about him before I interview him today. But like, I'm excited that our like first conversation is being recorded.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that sounds cool. Cool. All right. Well, I'll link all those things in the show notes of this episode for people who want to check it out. So awesome, Jeremy. Thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Alex.
Yeah, and thanks so much to everyone listening. If you enjoyed this episode and want to get more of these conversations sent directly to your inbox, just head over to alexsug.com and sign up for my newsletter. And as always, please go and leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And lastly, I have to give a shout out to Josh Perez. Josh Perez produced and edited this podcast. So if you're looking for help on your show, he's a great producer and an even better dude. I'll be back soon with another new episode soon. So until then, let's go make something cool.